Right, fans, this is JD at Bvtvnews, and y'all know I got to get y'all the latest and greatest news in the sport of boxing. And with that being said, man, let's talk about the latest retirement. The latest retirement by a young star in the sport by the name of Shakur Stevenson, who has come out and said that he is retiring from the sport of boxing. He said that he, will always be a part of the sport, but as of right now, he's done, and that he's just going to work and train and pass on his knowledge to the next generation. Now, I would venture to say that this is very similar to what we saw Teofimo Lopez do, at the end of 2023, where out of sheer frustration of not landing, the bouts that he wanted. You remember Teofimo Lopez saying that he was done with the sport, but now we see him headed right back into the ring, in 2024. I believe that the same thing is occurring right now with Shakur Stevenson. I think right now there is a lot of frustration with him not landing the bouts that he wants. And then that it always gets dicey with Bob Arum, with how much he's willing to pay you, depending on the opponent. So when you look at pay combined with opponent, it really gets tricky dealing with a lot of promotional companies. You feel like you deserve a certain rate of money, but your promoter is saying that I can only guarantee you that rate if you get names A, B, or C, but then A, B, or C don't want to fight. And so it really leaves you on an island by yourself, really waiting, to have some fighters rise up that could really challenge you and really get the public interested. That, the more interesting about, the more dollars in your pocket, So for Shakur Stevenson, I see where there's definitely some frustration related to that. A lot of people last remember, him facing off against, Edwin, De Los Santos. He got crushed, for being a boring fighter in that bout. While Shakur Stevenson at moments, may not be the most exciting, I still believe he is an exciting fighter. I believe, the public sometimes takes a look at only maybe 2 fights or 3 fights over the body of a career, and they want to pick the narrative that, someone is a boring fighter. I kind of disagree with that. I do think that Shakur Stevenson will bounce back in whatever his next bout is, and you won't see a boring fight like you saw against Edwin De Los Santos. Now, the important thing for Shakur Stevenson is, I always feel like in the sport of boxing, there's 2 ways for you to get yourself to being the A side in the sport, right? Option A is for you to defeat good names, and then naturally you build up to where you're the A side. When you beat top level opposition that has come up against you, and especially if you defeat them soundly or knock them out, that is a way for you to kind of get yourself to an A side. But then there's also another way, and I've seen this from Gervonta Tank Davis. We saw it with Deontay Wilder. We saw it with Gennady Golovkin. And that is, even if you're not facing the most elite opposition, if you are a fighter that can absolutely knock out and blast opponents, that also is a way to make yourself, get recognized and become the A side. And so if you're Shakur Stevenson, it's really 2 options. And right now, Shakur Stevenson has a 50% knockout rate. He's not really a fighter just yet that you could expect to go in the ring like a Tank, a Wilder, a Triple G, or a David Benavidez, and, and just blast through people. But then at the same time, Shakur is in a position where the top names don't want to face him so that he can have that opportunity to defeat them, and really get that name recognition and become the A side in the sport. So I understand the frustration, from a Shakur Stevenson, but I do believe that he will be back in the sport of boxing. I don't think for one moment we have solved the last of a Shakur Stevenson. I believe that, again, this is just a feeling that he's having at the moment out of sheer frustration. And sometime later in 2024, we will see, Shakur Stevenson back in the ring displaying his great boxing skills that we've come so accustomed to seeing. Let me know what you think in the comments on, is he really, is he capping, or is he really real when he says that he's retired from the sport? Let me know. Remember to like, share, subscribe. And remember, this is JD at Bvtvnews, and we're going to keep giving y'all the latest and greatest news in the sport of boxing. And with that being said, man, I'm out.